I wanted to talk today about love. Uh, Something came up for me in my relationship recently where the person I was dating was talking about love, and they said, "Well, if you say you love someone, then there is certain obligations. There's certain things that are obligations or duties." Now, if you guys have been listening to me, you know that I don't like to associate that word. Hi, Anon. How are you? I don't like to associate the word obligation or duty with love because those are contract words, right? So when we are in a relationship, we are agreeing to a to terms of a relationship, right? That's what I talk about when I talk about the exchange, right? So we understand the framework. We understand I own my body, I own my creations. There's an exchange, and there's five rules to an exchange. There's five principles of a healthy exchange. Hi, Jay. Nice to see you. Now, those elements of an exchange, right? Offer, acceptance, value exchange, mutual understanding, and no undue pressure. These are the foundations of any relationship, not just contracts, not just business, but any personal adult relationship. Okay, it's a little bit different if we're talking about an adult caring for their child, but any adult relationship, including marriage or love relationships, we have an agreement of what I bring to the table and what you give back, right? If one person is doing all the giving and the other person is not, then that is not a healthy relationship. Just ask any therapist, okay? It's a healthy relationship when there's always an exchange. That's a fluid movement of exchange, okay? Understanding that that is what it means relationship, right? To relate to somebody. And that's that exchange. Okay. Now, what about love? We're talking about love. What I was saying was that love is like the gift. Love is a gift. What is a gift? A gift is giving something with no expectation of return. You're just joyful in the giving of it. And I also encourage everyone to sit down and write down for themselves what the word love means to you, because it's such an important concept to really have right in our relationships. I'm doing very well, thank you. Hi, Anon. Feel free to ask me any questions about like the content and stuff as well. I'm happy to answer. Okay. So, what happens when we um, so anyway, he believes in the Bible very strongly. So he always tells me that if I want to tell him something, I've got to prove it to him from the Bible. So his concept was that if you love somebody, there is some kind of inherent obligation there, right? And I'm like, well, an obligation for what? What's the like? That's not inherent in the word love to me. That's not what the word love means. So when I talk about the word love, what are the meanings I put to it? Things like respect, affection, kindness, gratitude, um, generosity. What are the things that I will be doing if I love somebody? What or acceptance? How would I want to feel? Right? You're in Brazil. Very cool. Very good. Nice to see you guys in Brazil, rocking it out there. um, so I decided to look it up. All right, I'm a lawyer, and that's what I do. I look it up, and if I have to prove my case, I will. So I said, okay, you're telling me that you believe in the Bible, but you're saying that think that love has some kind of inherent obligation to the word. Now, I totally agree that in relationships, there's an obligation, but each person sits down and discusses what that obligation is. So let's check it out and see if the Bible says that there is obligation in the word love. Okay. So where does everybody go to define this? Okay, 1 Corinthians 13. You really can't go anywhere else. That's pretty much where it is. Okay, that's the definition of love in the Bible. So the definition here, and they literally spell it out in verse 4: love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Now, to me, if I'm talking about a record of wrongs, right, that's a contract thing. Okay. I did this, you didn't reciprocate, you know, keeping track, keeping record. That's a contract thing. But that's obviously explicitly not a part of love, according to this. Yes, I do know what language you speak in Brazil. I've been to Brazil. You guys speak Portuguese. Falo um pouco português. Now, I know I'm doing that with a Portuguese accent, not a Brazilian one. So, what's the next thing it says? It says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in the truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, it always perseveres. So none of those. Did anybody see the word obligation or duty in there? I didn't see that, right? I didn't see that in there at all. Um, in fact, it's pretty much the opposite. It says that it does those things. It always does those things. It doesn't say it does those things if someone else is reciprocating them. It doesn't say it does those things if someone else is doing it back, right? It just says that's what love is. That's what love does. And when you think about sort of the great leaders who we think of as examples of love, right? Of unselfish love, like Jesus, or maybe the Buddha, or leaders like this. They were never thinking about what they were going to get back, right? It was never about what do I get back. And in an adult exchange, in a healthy exchange, there is that reciprocity of what you get back. Hey, Gomez. Hey, Knox. Good to see you. So that's the concept, right? How do we do that? How do we define love for ourselves? You can take this definition that I just read, that's out of the Bible, out of 1 Corinthians 13, which I think is a great definition. Or and you can add other things to it, right? Like I said, for me, I add in gratitude, I add in acceptance, right? But I guess if you say always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres, that has a sense of acceptance to it as well. It keeps no record of wrongs. That also means acceptance, right? So there's lots of stuff that that you can do and think about, but in nowhere in there does it say this is about a duty, this is about an obligation. If you love me, you have to do this, right? Other than these things that it says right here. So it doesn't say if you love me, you have to take out the trash, or you have to, unload the car. You have to do all this other stuff, right? Yes, in a good, healthy adult relationship, we work with each other and we help each other in those things. But the reason I don't want to tie that into love is because if you do, then somebody might say, I love you. And then you say, well, you don't love me because you're not doing all these things for me. Okay. It can get tied in the wrong way. And then we can reject love because of that, right? Is it possible to love somebody and never even see them? Of course it is. Is it possible to love, to love people in the world, to love family from far away? Is it possible to love family and know that they are toxic and not hang out with them, but you can still love them and still want the best for them, right? And just know that they're not like maybe the best thing for you in your life. Yes, 100%. It's possible to do that. Okay, because love is these things that we just read, right? Patient, kind, not envious, not proud, it's respectful, right? So remember, I put respect as one of my words. It says it doesn't dishonor others, right? It's not self-seeking. It's full of gratitude. That's my word. I put in gratitude, but just kind of, it's not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs, right? So those like someone who kept a record of wrongs, that's an obligation. That's a contract, right? I did this, you didn't do that. That's talking about obligation. I know, Knox, I've missed you. I'm sorry you've been gone. It's good to see you back. How are you? So, that was what I wanted to talk about today. Like, how do I reconcile love with the framework? And like I said, because I'm dating somebody who believes very strongly in the Bible, I have to prove it to him from the Bible. So when I say something is true, I've got to be like, see, it says it in your book. So uh, fortunately, I memorized a lot of the Bible when I was growing up, so I know where to find stuff. Hey, Suleiman, good to see you. Great to see you, my man. Anyway, we were just having a conversation. I was explaining um, like the concept of love versus relationships, right? And relationship is the exchange, right? We're talking about the elements of the framework, and the element of the exchange is the five elements of the contract, right? The five elements of a good exchange. And that is those are the elements of any healthy relationship, right? So I 100% agree that in any relationship, there is duty, there is obligation, but there's only the obligation that you both consciously and willingly agree to. There's not just some inherent obligation to do this, that, and the other that, you might have in your head that the other person has no idea of, right? I've heard people say, like, well, anybody would know to do that, right? Anybody would know that if I do this, you do that. And I'm like, well, maybe not anybody would know that because I don't know that. That's not how I grew up, right? We all have such different each family is its own culture, not even like totally separate cultures of countries you grew up in or communities you grew up in. Even each family has its own culture of what they do and how they interact and how they behave and what reciprocity means and what parenting means and all this other stuff, right? Which is why to assume that you should know that if I do this, you should do this, or this is what I expect in a relationship, it's completely illogical, and it's what destroys relationships because we're expecting something from someone that they don't know about or that they don't consider part of that part of that exchange, right? Yeah, different morals and views of things, yes, Knox, or different things that people consider moral that may not be moral at all, right? Because when we define morality, I define it from the basis of, does it violate one of these things? Does it violate my body, my creations, the deal, the impact, right? Does it violate one of these things? If it doesn't violate one of those things, I don't think of it as moral, then it's a cultural norm, right? It still might be something really good and wonderful to do, and it makes life easier and more pleasant and more beautiful, right? Like etiquette, but that's a cultural norm. It's not a moral issue, right? So a lot of times we run up against this in relationships. Right. She's saying that not sometimes not everyone in the household has the same morals and views. Exactly. Yes, Solomon, good to see you, my man. Thanks for stopping by. So you can go back and watch it from the beginning, but I apply it to that. Anyway, so that's what I'm talking about, right? And then that's why in a relationship you have to sit down together. You have to talk about these things. And it can't be from a perspective of I'm right. I know how to be in a relationship and you don't, right? Has to be from a perspective of, this is how I've seen people interact in relationships. This is how I feel good about interacting. How do you feel good about interacting? What's your idea about what a relationship is? And then talk it out from a space of acceptance, right? From a space of love. If you can talk about the differences in how you see things or how you experience the world or relationships, but in a space of love, right, which is patient, kind, accepting, then I think we can get a lot further in our relationships with actually not messing it up, right? Um, so that's what I want to talk about today. I did have to put on my little lawyer cap and explain this concept and why I think that love is outside of the contract realm. And it looks like 1 Corinthians 13 backs me up on this. What do you guys think? You think I'm right on this one? uh, anyway, but the point is, the point is not to be right, but to have a healthy relationship, right? So that's where it comes in, and that's where this just being willing to talk about things and so that someone else understands what the exchange is, right? When we have a contract, when we're trying to come to an agreement, you have to have a mutual understanding. We both have to know we're talking about the same thing, and we have to agree on it. We have to agree that that's a good exchange. See? And if one person doesn't, and they just feel like they're being pressured into it, then that's just going to create resentment and that's going to destroy the relationship. So that's why we have to have those conversations and understand that when you're having those conversations, it's not from a perspective of I'm right and this is how a relationship should be because this is how relationships are in my culture, or this is how everyone should do it because this is how I've seen it done, right? Well, guess what? You haven't seen the whole world. And there's a lot of cultures out there. There's a lot of different ways to be in relationships. There's a lot of families. So be open, like just being open to your partner's way of being in a relationship. And that's what I've been having to do, right? Is be open to it. Like, if he's like to have things this way or that way, and I'm like, whoa, that is just so foreign to me. I don't even know where to go with that, right? But that's a conversation we have, and I can say, okay, well, I see that he likes to do things a certain way. He likes to be together a lot more than maybe I'm not used to because I'm used to being alone a lot. I'm very independent. Um, like, okay, so all right, so he wants us to talk about all this stuff. I'm used to just going off and just doing it, right? And so, there's all these little things that you have to learn in a relationship to try to kind of uh, meld together, right? But to have a mutual understanding, because he's like, this is how relationships should be. And I'm like, I think this is how relationships should be. So coming together and having those conversations, that's what's important to do, right? And coming and having those conversations out of a place of love, not out of one or the other person is right, but let's understand each other and let's choose the way to be in a relationship that's going to work best for both of us. Not one is right or the other is right, right? But that it's really all just a choice and we get to choose what works best for us. And if that's an unusual type of relationship, cool. Maybe we're just two weird, unusual people, and that's good too, right? We don't have to do it just the way that one person did it, or that your family did it, or his family did it, or your culture did it, right? So, anyway, that's my breakdown on that for today on a Wednesday. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing day. Enjoy. All right. And thanks for coming out to hang out with me. Thanks, everybody. Jay, nice to see you. Knox, it was good to see you, girl. Take care. And